Hey everyone, DarkDragoon here with Season 2, Episode 5 of my FTB Modpack Let's Play. So, I'm just logging in here today, and you'll notice something has happened to our little cave base. Namely, there was something that also happened over here. Don't worry, this was my doing. This was not caused by our crazy machine setup. You'll notice there's nothing in here, except our cave, that's our mining tunnel, that's still down there. There's a reason for this, and if you follow this mysterious road that I have noticed appeared between last episode and this one, you'll very quickly discover what happened. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of work off camera between this episode and last, mostly because I wanted to move us out of that little cave hole that we were living in into something a little bit more impressive and long-term and useful. And here it is. I decided to basically go again with sort of a factory design, but this time around I wanted to go for something a little more modern and cool. You can see it's definitely not done. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do to it, both just decorative wise, which I'll do a lot of that probably off camera, but also mod wise that I will be doing on camera. Particularly, I don't like the fact that we're lighting it up with torches at the moment, and at some point, once we get the materials for it, we're going to replace all the lighting in this whole building with red power lighting, which should be cool. And then hopefully we can set up switches and cool stuff to turn it on and off. So here's the main room. I guess we can call this our factory floor. You can see I've already put in some cool Mystcraft blocks. That's what these glowing green and black and red blocks are. Obviously, this here is smooth stone, and this here is basalt bricks. So, yeah, so you can see I pretty much just did some work sort of tidying things up, making it look kind of nice, and also moving our machines and our systems over here. Now, one important detail that I actually do want to show you guys before we get too far along, and the more I think about it, I think I'm also going to make a little bit of a tool that will help us. So let me pop over and try to remember where I put everything. First thing I'm going to do is remember how the Buildcraft wrench was having some problems. It's just a little bit bugged right now. Well, we do have a mod in our pack here called the Omni Tools mod. And part of that, I'm pretty sure, is this prototype Omni wrench. Now basically what this thing is, it's sort of a combination of a number of different wrenches from the different mods that are sort of condensed into one tool. And it's a little bit expensive as far as recipes go, but I think we can pull this off. Obviously, to get cyan wool, we're going to have to find... Either we can make ourselves some cyan dye, or we can make ourselves a minium stone and try to do that. Why don't we do that? Because that is easy to make, and a equivalent exchange item that we haven't made yet. So why don't we do that? We're going to need a couple bits of iron, one bit of gold, and some smooth stone, which, unless I'm mistaken, we have over here somewhere. These chests that I've set up here are temporary. They'll probably be moved into a more centralized location a bit later, but for now they'll work there. So let's just make ourselves a minium stone. It's pretty easy. Bit of gold in the middle, some iron on the sides, and some stone in the corners should give us an inert stone. Now, like I said, this is just the beginnings of Equivalent Exchange 3, and is the first item you're really going to need on the path to creating your own Philosopher's Stone. And to turn this inert stone into a minium stone, we're going to need to take these shards of minium, which we've been getting from mob drops. Occasionally, we need 8 of them to get a minium stone. Cool. So that done, I don't think I foolishly had made one before. So with that done, let's try to figure out what we do with our wool. to say this should work. Cool, it does work. So we can get ourselves a piece of cyan wool. And you can see every time you use the minium stone to transmute something, it'll take a bit of damage, unlike in previous versions of Equivalent Exchange. This stone actually will fall apart at some point. And it makes a certain amount of sense. It's imperfect. It's not a true Philosopher's Stone. But you can see there's a bunch of recipes for this. If you're familiar with Equivalent Exchange 2 and previous iterations of Equivalent Exchange, it pretty much operates under the basic idea that all the items, all the blocks and items in the game have basically what's an EMC value that allows it to be equivalently exchanged for other items. So you can see, you know, 4 obsidian with a minium stone will get you an iron ingot, and so on. You can see there's 75 pages of this, so there's lots of good uses for it, particularly turning things into other things, which is really, oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't know, I mean, I should have known that ender pearls were a possibility, but that's kind of cheap actually for ender pearls, so that's good to know. So yeah, and you can see since it takes, for example, let's see, took 4 iron to make an ender pearl. You'll also notice that 1 ender pearl gets transferred into 4 iron because it's equivalent. So yeah, there's lots of stuff we can do with that, and we just use it to get ourselves some cyan wool. And other than that, we're just going to need to grab ourselves our 2 pieces of gold and our I think it was 1 piece of gold, excuse me, and our 2 diamonds, which I believe are in here. And we'll just use our pocket crafting table here. I believe you can also use the minium stone to craft with. I honestly haven't tried. Yes, you can. I believe if you do that, however, you will, again, do damage to the minium stone. You'll also maybe notice that there's a little red circle in the bottom right corner of the screen. And whenever I hover over a block, you can see it's showing up in that little circle. So I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah. So you can see I just left clicked on this block to turn it into a mossy block. And if I left click again, okay, now that was because I was right clicking it. I honestly have not played around a lot with this, so I'm gonna leave it alone for now. Figure out how to make that unmossy again. And go to really what I wanted to get into this episode, which was getting into our logic gates. And moving all this stuff over here was kind of important to moving forward in that. So last time I pretty much, obviously in the course of building this, had let our system run and slowly but surely fill up our redstone energy cell to full. You can see there's a little bit missing, but that's just because I'll run some stuff through the machine and it'll drain out, and then I'll run these again, and so on and so forth. But you might be wondering, why is it almost full? Well, interestingly enough, these redstone energy cells, the cool thing about them is that you can get them to full energy and you can move them so long as you use the proper tool to break them. So just so that I can, so you guys can see a little better, I'll dig down here a block and I'll switch over to our prototype Omni Wrench. Now you can see if I just sort of whack this thing, nothing happens, but if you shift right click, as with most of the thermal expansion stuff, it'll pop it off, and you'll notice that our redstone energy cell has a little damage meter. And if we hover over it, you can see that it has, it has a charge of 588,172 MJs, which is cool. It also saves the data of what we had set the input and outputs to. So with a wrench, you can pop off your redstone energy cells, move them around, and use them almost as portable batteries if you want. Obviously, this one is meant to be stationary here, so we're going to throw it back, and you can see it's still full. So, cool. So, that all done, let's replace our floor here. Let's go ahead and get started with our machine here that we had worked to put together last episode at the very end. So to get this thing going, I'm actually going to drop off some of this random stuff that's in our inventory, like our shards of minium. And I have to remember where things are at this point, because again, I just moved stuff over, so I'm still kind of getting used to where everything is again. So we'll throw that there, and we can throw our smooth stone into there. Cool. And we'll drop off probably that and the wrench. Just drop those off in our toolbox. Actually, it is night, and I'm going to have to go outside, so let's go ahead and sleep through the night. Nighttime, daytime, cool. And we're gonna run out here because we're gonna need, actually, well, we're probably gonna need more of these anyway. Yes, I only have 2, and we probably want some more of those. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go out and we're gonna find some more of these red flowers. Shouldn't be too far away. I know I saw a bunch growing around a little while ago. Actually, no, I'll get to that later, because I'm not getting into the farming stuff quite yet. Oh, interestingly enough, I didn't actually notice... Oh, creeper. That thing almost got me. I'm sure you guys heard the hiss right before I did. Come on. There we go. So as I was saying, what I didn't notice until after I'd already built our factory over there, we've actually got ourselves a little Buildcraft dungeon here, and you can see very dark in there. It's blocked off with iron bars at the moment, and I'm not going to go in there quite yet, but that is a witch. Do you believe this is the first time I've ever seen a witch? Oh god, oh, it's throwing potions at me. Die, witch. Oh, I really hope I don't die. I honestly have never fought one of those before, so I think I am gonna die. Well, that's disconcerting, seeing how I'm probably gonna lose my 52 levels. Okay, no, it won't kill us off. That is good. Well, I was going searching for flowers, but I was not expecting to find a witch. Witches do not appear to drop much of anything from... unless I'm missing something. Yeah, that's the first witch I've ever seen. Honestly, I've never come across one before. So, I think 5 roses will be enough. So we're going to need to get ourselves some of this rose red. We're also going to need to get ourselves some redstone and some iron to get this thing going. So basically, this machine runs pretty slow, even with the high energy output it's getting from our energy cell. It's still kind of a slow running machine, and it's intended to be so. So I'm just going to basically grab ourselves maybe a stack of redstone, half a stack of iron, and I'm just going to toss it into the left side of our assembly table. And you see I put the iron in, nothing happened. Put the redstone in, aha! Now I can make these 2 items, redstone chipsets. Now, the trick to these is the chipsets in particular are components for other items in the assembly table. Let's actually look at the uses for them. Basically, you use these redstone chipsets. There are a number of them. There's just redstone, there's iron redstone, there's redstone gold, and redstone diamond, obviously, to make these things called AND gates and OR gates. And the higher quality metal that is used in the gate makes it have more features and be able to do more stuff. Obviously, we are not going to be making a bunch of these diamond gates just yet, but you can see they also require these pipe wires. That's where our rose red comes in, and to make our red pipe wire, let's take a look at that, because that's really the first thing we're going to need is some pipe wire and some of these redstone chipsets. And you can see that's why we need 1 redstone, 1 rose red, 1 iron ingot will give us 8 red pipe wire in the assembly table. And this goes pretty quick. And actually, if we were to just run it, you can see the lasers will start to go, and it just starts kind of vomiting out whatever we're trying to make. And the pipe wire goes pretty fast. You can see we've already, in just a couple seconds, made 24 of those. But if I were to go over here And I'm actually going to grab a bite to eat because that poison hurt pretty badly. If we go over here and get ourselves some wood, I believe we have some floating around somewhere. There we go. I'm going to need a piece. We're just going to get ourselves a chest. Pretty standard as far as things to make. And we're going to basically just put this down right next to our assembly table. And the nice thing about this is I'm going to go ahead and put the red pipe wire. I'm going to go ahead and put the red pipe wire in our assembly table. And you can see it hasn't added anything just yet, but if I go ahead and make another bit of red pipe wire, you can see it didn't get vomited out onto the ground, but it's automatically being put into our chest. So cool. That's probably enough of that for now. So let's go ahead and get ourselves, we could make some of these normal gates with the redstone chipsets, but there's not a lot you can do with them. So I jump right to the iron chipsets. So we're just going to get this going. Obviously, as you see the lasers power up, blue is the max. This is going to drain energy pretty quickly. We can sort of watch it drain. And honestly, these hobbyist steam engines are not really going to be enough to just let this machine go. But since I'm not planning on making a bunch of these gates just yet, I think I'm just going to need 4 in the sort of near future, and we might have enough energy to do that. But you can see it is definitely a pretty slow running machine. It's been going for, I'd say probably 30 seconds or so, and we're about halfway done. So obviously the more complicated the component you're trying to make on the assembly table, the longer it's going to take. So obviously the diamond chipsets are going to take the longest of the chipsets, and the gates are going to take even longer than chipsets because they're more complicated. Makes sense. Cool. And so basically I'm just going to let this go for a few minutes, and when I come back hopefully I'll have I'm going to try to just let this go until I have 4 so that I can show you what exactly I intend to do with them. So I will be right back. Alright, I am back, and I just wanted to basically show you guys real quick that I've got myself a good number of these redstone iron chipsets. It took me just a couple minutes to do. And I definitely want to show you guys these gates and how they're made. They're made pretty much the same way as the pipe wiring and the chipsets we made, but but I would definitely want to show you the recipe for those. I'm going to have to type that into NEI. Iron gate. No. Let's just go with iron. There we go. That'll bring it up. And if we pull it up, you can see the first recipe you're going to get is a shapeless recipe. Basically, using just one of these redstone chipsets, you can convert these. You can convert OR gates to AND gates, or you can convert AND gates to OR gates. I'll explain a little more about the difference between AND and OR gates later when we actually get to that part, where we're playing around with them. But just know that if you make a bunch of one type and you need the other type, you can always convert one to the other. So we're going to pop over to the more important part, which is the recipe. You can see it takes a redstone iron chipset and a piece of red pipe wire along with 40,000 units of energy to make one iron AND gate. So I'm going to let this start going, and obviously you can see it's going to ramp back up to full speed. You can see just in that short amount of time to make those redstone iron chipsets, we've drained, let's see, about 100,000 Minecraft joules. So pretty significant. And you can see, like I said, this obviously runs much slower than making the chipsets, but you can basically see how it works. Now the cool thing about the assembly table is you can see we have our iron AND gate is highlighted, so that's where the assembly table is currently making. We can go ahead and click on more than one. We could click on every single thing in here, and basically what that'll do is the assembly table will cycle through each of these items in the order that we set them. So the way I have it set right now, it's basically going to make us an iron AND gate, and then I think yes. accidentally just made us make another iron chipsaw. That's okay. We'll need lots of those. Anyway, what I was going to say was it was working on an iron AND gate, and when that was done, it was going to basically hop onto the next thing in the order that we plugged it in, and it'll just make us whatever we tell it to. That way you can pretty much set it to automatically go, replenish some of your stuff that you can only make in the assembly table. Like the red pipe wire, I could set it to make, every time you make an iron AND gate, next go ahead and make some more red pipe wiring. But right now I think we have enough of everything that we don't really need to do that. We really just need to wait out this whole assembly table until it gets finished making all of our gates. So that said, what I think I'm going to do is let this run, and when we're about to have our second one finish, I'll pop back and show you guys how they work. Alright, I am back, and as you can see, this thing has been chugging along, and we've got ourselves 4, almost 5 of these iron AND gates. So I'm just going to let this thing go while we move on, and I can actually show you exactly how these things work and how useful they are. This is just going to be the beginning of the potential uses we can use these for. So basically the way these gates work is they slap on any type of pipe, be they power conductors or liquid pipes or just the transport pipes, but they will not go on these energy conduits. Keep that in mind. They don't go on there yet, and I don't know if they ever will be able to go on there, but just be aware that they can't go on there. Now, it used to be that they didn't have any sort of interaction with the redstone energy cell, but they do now, so that's going to come in handy. And the reason why we needed 4 is because we're going to put one right there, right by the energy cell, and one by each of the engines. And if we open up the interface here for those, you can see they have 2 potential basically operators going on that we can set. Now, because this is an AND gate, the way that these logic gates work is they will do something, i.e. what's over here on the right, if the thing on the left is fulfilled. So at the moment, obviously there's nothing set on the right, so all it's saying is if the energy is full in our engine, obviously, because it's interacting with that machine that's right next to it, then it's not doing anything, so therefore it'll never turn on. But if we go ahead and set something here, let's set it to, we'll just set it to, come on, full energy, emit a redstone signal. That's pretty much all it can do. So if we set it to, say, let's see, inventory, items in inventory. Basically, it's going to read this inventory, go, hey, there's coal in here, so that is going to be fulfilled, and it's going to emit a redstone signal. Now, typically, if we set up something else down here, the way the AND gate works is it will only do what's on the right if both of these conditionals are met. So if we also say, hey, if items in inventory emit a redstone signal, and if the tank is empty, emit a redstone signal. Well, you can see that the gate isn't emitting a redstone signal because both of these conditionals are not met. And if we say, hey, is liquid in the tank, emit a redstone signal, it will suddenly go ahead and emit it. Now, if this were an OR gate, it works pretty much the same way, except instead of both conditionals having to be met in order to do what's on the right, one or the other has to be met. Now, you don't have to actually use both the slots. Obviously, the more complicated the gate, the gold gates will have more potential conditionals you can set, and the diamonds even more than that. But we're really just going to use it for something else entirely. Now, I'm going to go ahead and flip this switch, because right now this switch is just keeping them on, so obviously the redstone signal will do nothing. But when I flip the switch to turn off the redstone signal to all the engines, you'll notice that the engine with the gate next to it that's on is still pumping. Well, that's because it's getting the redstone signal from the gate. Cool. So, that done, what we're going to do is currently we don't really have any conditional here that's going to really do what we want it to. So that's where this gate comes in. This gate is connected to our energy cell. So what we're going to do here, just like as I explained with before, we're going to try to set a conditional so it'll do something here on the right. And what we're going to do is we're going to do can store energy. So what that means is if there is space in the block to store energy, this gate will emit a redstone signal. And you might be wondering, okay, well, that doesn't seem to help us because it still won't turn on our engines. That's where our red pipe wiring is going to come in handy. Not only does this stuff get used for making of gates, but you can actually put it onto pipes like so. So we're going to just attach it on all these pipes so it links this block of pipe with the gates. So now that there's pipe wiring on here, we can take a look in our gate, and you'll notice that there's a conditional that says red pipe signal. And the second I did that, you might have noticed the redstone signal, obviously the gate lit up like it was telling us it was doing something, as did the wiring. So at the moment, this block can store energy. So this is reading it is true, and then it is emitting a red pipe signal. Now, red pipe signal is not the same as a redstone signal, so that alone will not go ahead and turn on our engines. But what we can do is red pipe signal, when you actually have pipe wiring attached to a gate, is a conditional on the left. So now this gate is saying, hey, am I getting a red pipe signal? If I am, go ahead and emit a redstone signal, which is turning on the engine. And so we're going to do that for all three of these, because obviously we want all the engines to turn on simultaneously. And there we go. So now this system is fully automated. So long as this block can hold energy, these engines will run. And when it cannot hold energy anymore, they'll shut off. So obviously, if we don't run this for a really long time, obviously it ran out of gates to make, ran out of materials to make gates with. Ran out of these chipsets. So if this just goes for a while and runs for a really long time, and none of the machines are running, and this block fills up, as soon as it is full, then the engines will stop. And then when we have more work for this stuff to do, it'll draw on energy, pulling energy out of the block, and turning our engines back on to start the work of refilling it. So cool. With just that simple, even with these very simple gates, you guys hopefully can see the infinite possibilities that you can do with these gates and how they can really make your life easier, particularly with automating, turning your systems on and off based on whatever conditionals you set. So, that done, and sort of an introduction to gates done, I think our next goal is we definitely need to think about, first of all, probably getting ourselves more Buildcraft power than this, because the 1.6, well, actually these seem to be running up to 2 now. The 2 megajoules we're getting from each of these engines is really not enough. You could see just from making those 7 gates, we pretty much drained this by more than half. So we're definitely going to need some more Buildcraft power, and we'll probably also want to consider moving into getting some industrial craft power set up pretty soon. So why don't I go ahead and check to see where we are, get some things together, and we'll move on from there. Alright, I'm back, and it's looking like we're getting pretty close to the point where we're going to have to call this episode. So I figured what I'd do with the last couple minutes we have is go ahead and get started with something that, well, I haven't really had much of a need for it yet, but I know I will in the future, and so I might as well go ahead and take care of it. And that is getting ourselves set up with some of our Mystcraft items. Now, to get started with Mystcraft is pretty easy. And the first thing you're really going to need is a writing desk, which is simply 5 wood planks of any kind with a feather and an ink sac will give us a writing desk. Now, let me see. I looked at this a second ago, trying to debate where was the best place to put this, as I'm kind of using this as my sort of room at the moment. I don't want to use the upstairs, because I have other plans for that. Kind of wondering if I'd position some of this stuff the way I really wanted to. We can just go ahead and slap it down right there. Yeah, that'll do. No big deal. Now, to make the most use of this, what we could do is if we had a descriptive book of some kind, which I'll probably make one here in a minute, we could put it in here and we could give it our own unique name. And we could also see the various little symbols that were written into that book after we went to that world. But for sake of sort of making things a little bit easier and being able to show you guys cool stuff faster, there's one item that I'm going to go ahead and cheat myself in using creative mode. If you guys want to do this, go for it. I definitely think it's worthwhile doing if you want to just have all your options available to you. Go ahead and do it. If you like exploring a little more and making random worlds and seeing what you get, by all means do that, and you don't have to cheat this in at all. So that is to say, if it'll let me take it. Come on. Okay. There we go. That did it. Cool. So the item I got was a notebook. You can definitely see the recipe for it here if you just want to make your own. If you make your own, you'll notice that the notebook is blank and doesn't have any symbols in it yet. Basically the way that it works is as you make new worlds, forgot to turn that off. As you make new worlds, the notebook will automatically update with all the symbols you've learned from going into that world. But since I cheated mine in, you'll notice when I take it and put it over here on the left in the writing desk, you can see a bunch of symbols show up. And basically these control what kind of world you're going to create. And there's a lot of different tabs here, and I'll sort of briefly go over them all. Obviously, all the biomes from vanilla and extra biomes are in here. So most of them are pretty self-explanatory. If you know anything about vanilla biomes or Biomes XL, you can definitely see as I'm just sort of going through them, most of them will be, like I said, fairly self-explanatory. Some of them are not. Hell biome, for example, is basically the nether biome. So if you make a hell biome world, you're going to get zombie pigmen and gas and all that stuff. Likewise, if you make, let's see here, I'm trying to find where it is here, a sky biome, that's basically the biome that the end is. So you're going to get an ender dragon, most important of all, and a bunch of endermen. So keep that in mind. Very nice place to farm endermen if you can get through that dragon. And don't make a mistake I made in Season 1 of my Let's Play where I made it a void world and it was a big problem. Don't recommend it. Don't do it. It will just end badly, I promise you. So that's the biome tab. There's also the biome controller tab. This pretty much controls the number of biomes that your world can sustain. You can see there's lots of different options. Checkerboard will pretty much make a world that looks like a checkerboard. It requires 2 biomes exactly in order to be stable. Huge biomes, I believe you need at least 3 for pretty much any of the ones that are just a size name biomes. You need at least 3, but obviously they will vary up how big of an area those biomes take up. So there's huge, large, medium, and of course there's small over here and tiny. Um, but in addition to those, you've got your native biome controller. That pretty much will give you a world pretty much like the overworld as far as biome distribution. And then there's single biome, which will give you a world which is entirely one biome. Obviously the single biome needs at least one, and I believe the native biome controller also needs at least 3, just like the large, medium, etc. Then you have lighting, pretty self-explanatory. A world that is bright, a world that is dark, and a world that has standard lighting. Now keep in mind this does not have anything to do with how day passes. This is purely how bright the world is going to be. So for example, in a bright world, even caves without any torches in them will be bright as the noonday. So do keep that in mind. So sky will control the various colors of the things in the sky, from the clouds to the fog in the distance to the sky itself to the sunset. There's a lot of different options, cool colors, lots of different combinations you can make, and you can put the same, or you can put multiple, like black clouds. You can put multiple cloud colors in and you'll get some kind of gradient in between all of the things you pick. Pretty neat sort of programming that went into this, I think. I can't imagine how simple that was to do. I don't really know anything about programming, but well, it just seems impressive to me. So anyway, moving right along, terrain features. These are pretty self-explanatory as well. You pretty much want to you can put in quite a few of these without too much trouble, and you pretty much want to usually try to get in at least 5 in order to make sure you've got a stable world, which I'll explain here in a second. But yeah, got some cool stuff like caves and crystals and dungeons and all sorts of manner of cool stuff. Now, I'll let you just sort of play around with these to sort of figure out a little bit what they are. Like I said, a lot of them are self-explanatory, but the star fissure is really important because normally if you go to another world, the only way back is if you have a linking book back to your overworld. But if the world has a star fissure, you can hop into that, and that will send you back to the spawn point in your overworld. So keep that in mind if you want to build worlds where you have a way out in case you forget a book. So you got terrain generation, which again, pretty self-explanatory. Cave world will pretty much give you a world kind of like the Nether, where you have ground above your head. Flat will be just like it sounds, completely flat. Standard terrain will be pretty much like the overworld terrain. And void will spawn no terrain at all. Very useful for making mob grinders and the like. Very cool. Time will define how fast time passes in your world. Whether it's eternally day or eternally twilight or dusk or night, etc. And then there's weather, of course, which should be, again, pretty self-explanatory. Defines what kind of weather there is. No weather is a big favorite of mine, just because I cannot stand the sound of rain. But the world modifiers is where you want to start being careful. There's a lot of cool world modifiers, particularly things like dense ores, and a lot of these will stack upon each other, so if you want to put in a bunch of dense ores into a world, you can. However, the more of these things you have in here, some of these world modifiers are positive, some are negative. If you put in a bunch of positive ones, things like dense ores, things that are either just sort of not too big a deal, don't really change much to the world, like charged, which just makes it do lightning a lot, or dense ores, which changes it a lot and gives you, like it sounds, a bunch of ore generation. That will increase the likelihood that your world will be unstable and will give you all sorts of nasty, bad effects. There's a lot of them. I'm pretty sure I've not even discovered all of them. So I'll let you explore the instability a little bit. There's a lot of effects, things like poison and blindness and crazy stuff, and then there's also even crazier stuff like meteors falling from the sky or the world randomly, spontaneously exploding all around you. You can see these are world modifiers, so if you put these in, obviously they'll help reduce the overall negativity of your world. So you can manually put in meteors to try to make up for the fact that you might have some dense ores. So really cool system, really fun to play with, and very, very useful. I think we'll probably end up making another world pretty soon. I'm thinking about, I've been debating whether or not I want to do my Thaumcraft here in the overworld or in another world, such as in a Mystcraft world. So look forward to that. Now, with that said, I think that's where we're going to have to call this episode. I can pretty much guarantee we're quite a bit over the 30-minute mark. So, look forward to next episode where I'm going to definitely get started on finding us some more Buildcraft power. And that's probably going to involve the Nether and getting lava here, because that is probably the most efficient resource way to go about that. And hopefully that will lead into some more cool machines and other stuff, and maybe even into getting started with our industrial craft stuff. So stay tuned for that, and until then, this has been episode 5 of season 2 of my FTB Modpack Let's Play. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and stay tuned for next episode. Catch you guys later.